When you are worth over $1 billion, you can buy just about anything you like. Remember, that's $1,000 million chunks. And if you're a multi-billionaire, you'll have far more than even that. When it comes to deciding what to purchase, money is literally no object for a billionaire in many cases. Though neither is common sense, billionaires spend their money on some crazy stuff. Some of these purchases are gaudy, rich kid versions of everyday items, and some are childhood dreams that come true, while others make almost no sense to anyone. Aside from the billionaire dropping the dollars on them, check out these 10 crazy things billionaires own and see for yourself. Number 10. You may own a goldfish or two, but to people with money, that's nothing but even a regular rich person's wall-to-wall aquarium is child's play compared to what hedge fund manager Steve Cohen has in his possession in 2005 for the low price of $8 to $12 million. Cohen purchased the 14-foot-long tiger shark corpse preserved in a giant alcohol and formaldehyde-filled tank. At least he saved money by not having to feed it. This pickled shark is a sculpture entitled "The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living." Was designed in 1991 by artist Damien Hirst, originally sold it to an art collector named Charles Saatchi for $93,000. Suffice it to say, Saatchi more than made his money back by selling his shark to Cohen. Cohen loves spending his billions on extraordinary oddities, so much so that this video could have been entirely about him. He owns countless works of expensive art, including a Picasso that real estate mogul Steve Wynn accidentally elbowed to the hole in. He's also rumored to own a tattooed pig and once spent $100,000, so Food Network celebrity Guy Fieri would spend a day with him. No word on the theory suggested cutting up Cohen's shark and serving at his orders. Number 9. For some people, it's not enough that the world knows you're rich, like Sheikh Ahmad bin have done on a Yamaha Buddha Bees ruling class, want any alien ships passing by the planet to know as well. And so it went, that all Neon went about getting his name etched onto the planet big enough to be seen from space as befitting billionaire royalty on my owns a private island called Alpha Tai Sea. At some point, he decided he wanted to figuratively shout his name up to the heavens, so he commissioned engineers to dig deep paths throughout the sand that spelled out his first name on the natural signature stretched out over at least a mile and was possibly up to 2 miles long. What's more, the letters were roughly 1/3 of a mile wide, meaning it was visible from space. Google Maps captured satellite footage of the area, and you can see him, and spelled out that high up all night, and goal was to make sure his signature was visible from the moon, but nobody went up there to find out for sure if that was a reality. Unfortunately, Hammond is no more. Starting in April 2012, workers began to fill the deep grooves that made up the signature, and by June of that year, it was filled in. Nobody involved has ever explained why, presumably for the same reason. Nobody's ever revealed exactly when the sheikh ordered his signature be created, because he's filthy rich and doesn't know anyone. An explanation for anything. Number 8. Guys, how much do you spend on a haircut? $15, maybe 20. That's because you are not the Sultan of Brunei, whose haircuts cost about as much as a mid-sized car cost the rest of us, that make a billionaire. Sultan's real name is Hassan. Bolkiah discovered his favorite stylist sometimes in the 90s. His name is Ken Modesto, who runs his simple salon in England. He typically charges around $40 for a chi, but the Sultan loves his work so much, he's willing to pay much more every few weeks. He'll find Modesto after Brunei with first-class flights and 5-star hotel accommodations. For what amounts to a simple trim, he pays me the best out, several $1,000s for his services. Combined with the 7,000-mile round-trip flights, hotels, and gourmet meals, the Sultan ultimately pays around $24,000 for a single simple trim. The word here is simple. The Sultan's hair is not extravagant in any way. It's a simple, short, conservative style with a neat part to the left. He could get that kind of cut trim by almost anyone and save hundreds of thousands every year. But when you're worth at least $20 billion, you can afford to make outlandish financial decisions. Number 7. Nowadays, photos of famous people are a dime a dozen. But 140 years ago, actual pictures of household names were rarest could be. So when an authentic one pops up and you have millions to shell out for it, chances are you're going to go for it. That's what William Koch did in 2011. A corporate businessman attended a Wild West auction and observed a small tin-type photo of the famed outlaw, Billy the Kid, taken around 1879. It's the only proven photograph of the Kid in existence. He can't get much rarer than that. And Koch was willing to pay the big bucks to snag the ultimate a rarity for himself before the auction experts predicted the Kid's photos to sell for $300,000, possibly $400. Koch had no desire to engage in a bidding war. And with his billions, he didn't have to. He simply bid $2 million, snuffed out most of the competition almost immediately, and ultimately took home the only known evidence that Billy the Kid was an actual person. The fees paid out to the auction house cost Koch as much as the photo's expected value. Koch ended up paying $2.3 million for the picture is not bad for a faded old photo that's barely bigger than a credit card and not even a selfie of the booth. Number 6. It's hard to know for sure what Donald Trump is worth. Some say he's worth several billion, while others claim he's not even a billionaire. We do know, however, that he's worth enough that he can afford to buy his private jet and decorate the nastiest part of it with solid gold. In 2011, Trump purchased a Boeing 757 from Microsoft for $100 million. That alone would be quite the power move. But as the past couple of years have proven, Donald Trump does not do anything small. He decided to adorn his new plane to reflect his personality, and one big part of that personality is that he loves gold. The private bedroom is adorned with gold silk from wall to wall, and the main chambers are littered with gold pillows and gold linings on the light gold sofas. Even the seatbelts are plated in 24-karat gold because safety without style isn't safety at all. But it's the bathroom that turns this plane from typical rich person, purchases too crazy, rich person, gestures at Trump's private bathroom features not just a large circular shower but a solid gold sink and faucet. The sink mirror is lined with gold, and even a little sign directing you to sit in case of turbulence is lined with gold. No word on whether his toilet is also golden, though this being Donald Trump, you're not risking much money by betting that it is. Number 5. Everyone knows Leonardo da Vinci is one of history's greatest geniuses and visionaries. Most of us have seen his famed scribblings featuring intricate sketches of arm and foot bones, river topography, and proved far ahead of his time with ideas for flying machines and compasses and even studies about how the heart pumps blood that modern science didn't manage to confirm until several decades ago. Many of these sketches can be found in a 16th century notebook called the Codex, like Esther. Inside the Codex is 72 pages of Da Vinci doodlings and writings that make as strong an argument for men's immortality as anything else. You might think something like the Codex would be worth huge bucks today, and you'd be correct as such. Most of us can't even consider owning it, but most of us are not. Bill Gates in 1994, the uber-rich Microsoft mogul who was only worth a measly $10 billion at the time, forked over $30.8 million to purchase the Codex. At the time, this made the Codex the single most expensive book in history, but for a fervent rare book collector in Da Vinci and Myra like Gates, whom we can almost certainly consider the Da Vinci of our time, a testament to the Renaissance icon's boundless imagination and almost supernatural forethought, was worth every penny. Number 4. For some billionaires, having all that money means the opportunity to live out their childhood dreams. And how many children grow up dreaming of being Batman a lot, to put it mildly? Samuel Cathy, the billionaire founder of Chick-fil-A, was one such child. But since being Batman takes a lot of time and physical prowess, he settled on the next best thing, buying a Batmobile, or rather, the Batmobile, an avid car collector. Cathy set his sights on the actual Batmobile used in the 1992 film Batman Returns. He wound up spending $250,000 on Bruce Wayne's favorite automobile, something that likely made Ronald McDonald, the Joker of the fast food world, extremely nervous, being a fun-loving kind of restaurant entrepreneur. Cathy didn't just get one of his assistants to pick up the car and then leave it in the garage. Rather, Cathy himself arrived to pick up his new wheels dressed as the Caped Crusader, and even did a brief joyride around his estate before bringing it to the garage himself. If the sign of a 70-year-old man dressed as Batman and riding around to the Batmobile didn't make his employees smile at least a little, and I'm not sure what would. Number 3. Some rich people love cars, others enjoy planes. Faint Titanic and Avatar director James Cameron, meanwhile, loves submarines. But he doesn't just spend his money on weekend expeditions. He owns his own submarine and uses it. Cameron, as befitting a man best known for a movie about a ship that sinks deep beneath the waves, is a huge fan of the ocean. He's big into marine biology and loves the deep ocean. He enjoys it so much, in fact, that he got himself 2 submarines. Amazingly, he didn't just go out and buy himself a top-of-the-line sub. He built one. He and his team constructed the 11-ton, 23-foot-long Challenger specifically for Cameron and his adventures, and while we don't know exactly how much he spent a submarine of that, costs around $1.5 million on the market. Even if Cameron saved some money by doing it himself, he likely forked over at least $1 million to do, so he hasn't just made quick trips underwater with it either. He's made history in that thing in 2012. Cameron wrote his sub more than 7 miles underwater to the deepest known part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench off the coast of Eastern Asia. He was only the second person to venture down there, and he said the experience was akin to visiting another planet. One can imagine how much money he would have made with a movie about that world, instead of multiple Avatar sequels few of us asked for. Number 2. The idea of a rich person buying an island isn't exactly unheard of, but when that island is an entire chunk of Hawaii, that's a lot rarer, but it's happened thanks to billionaire Oracle founder Larry Ellison. Several years ago, Ellison visited the island of Lanai and, like most tourists, enjoyed the lush surroundings and tropical greenery, very much also. Like most tourists, he wanted a memento to remember the trip by, but unlike most tourists who buy a trinket at the tourist shop and call it a day, he decided to buy the entire island outright. And so he did, forking over $300 million to call 98% of Lanai his own. He then spent several $100 million more to refurbish the island, including a new water filtration system and an Olympic-sized swimming pool in Lanai City, where virtually all of the island's 3,100 citizens live. He also, with this purchase, stopped the Castle and Cook Corporation, which once only island, from demolishing much of the island's historic district to build a more modern housing and commercial buildings. Ellison isn't just keeping the 90,000-acre island to himself either. You can visit, and if you do, you'll essentially be visiting paradise. This is especially the case if you can afford to stay in the penthouse suite at his Four Seasons resort. There, according to CNBC, you're treated like royalty with luxurious bedding, priceless Polynesian art to tickle your eyes and brain, and unbelievable ocean views. Outside of the bedroom are horse riding trails, gorgeous private waterfalls and dipping pools, koi ponds, a golf course designed by Jack Nicklaus himself, and even planes for private flying lessons. Expect to pay upwards of $21,000 a night for all this. However, once a businessman is always a businessman. Number 1. Large homes are a rich person's staple, but how many desire a ridiculous house that towers over all others like Godzilla, and just so happens to be the most expensive house ever built? While Mukesh Ambani, for one, the chairman of Indian conglomerate Reliance Industries, is worth around $45 billion, meaning he could have whatever home he wanted. As it turns out, what he wanted was a 27-story skyscraper looking down on Ultimate Road, one of the world's most expensive streets also. Many of these stories sport a double-high ceiling, making it the equivalent height of most 40-story buildings inside. His pure luxury embodies humble abode, boasts a 50-seat theater, a grand ballroom, multi-level gardens, a spa, a temple, 2-story recreation center, and more diamond and jewel-encrusted decor than many would think possible. The total cost was about $1.2 billion, making it the most expensive private residence of all time, and I do mean private despite its sheer size. The only people who actually live there are Ambani, his wife, and their 3 children. They employ a full staff of servants and enjoy entertaining guests, but aside from that, this humongous complex that could easily house dozens of families, if not hundreds, is strictly set aside for one rubra, wealthy last name only.